Hi there, this is Cindy and I'm super excited to show you a tour of my Mosaic Crochet Chart Creator. It's a template that is used in Excel, so you just need your own version of Excel and then you just open this template and you can start designing. This is a home page. This is the page that will open when you first open the program. It may want you to enable content. This happens a lot when you open most Office documents, whether it's Word or Excel. Sometimes it will say enable editing. Sometimes it will say enable content. This one is saying enable content because there are some macros that run in the background that help the buttons work. They help the squares change color. It's basically the code that's running in the background. That takes me to the next part of the screen. You may see something like this. Basically, this is a warning Microsoft has to make sure you trust the source of this file. If you get some random email from somebody you don't know and there's a file attached to it, sometimes hackers can send out files they create to try to fish for information or install malware. And so usually those are those weird random emails you see from somebody you don't know. It has an attachment. Those are the ones you don't want to trust. But this file template I've created just to design crochet charts. This template I've created uses the macros in a positive way. For instance, these buttons at the bottom, the buttons on the charts, as we'll go over later, they make the designing a lot more easy and convenient, and they're the magic that run behind Excel. As we scroll down, we have the navigation section. This is the first place you're going to want to go when you first open this up. Excel defaults to have the toolbar at the top and some background grid lines, the numbers on the side of the grids. Basically, all that stuff takes up about 25% of your screen. So you're going to want to go here first, do some basic setup. You're not going to need all this stuff for these chart creators. You're not doing any math calculations or financial calculations. You're basically designing a chart. So you're going to want to go here first and just go through the workspace setup just to make the most out of the real estate on your computer screen. How to use. This will take you to a page that explains how to use the chart, which we'll go over in a minute. This will take you to a page that has a link to all the chart. It also has the sizes. So it has how many stitches per row and how many rows, and then the approximate size that that square will be once you stitch it up with a medium weight yarn, like a Red Heart Super Saver, just to kind of give you an estimate. Obviously, you can use whatever yarn thicknesses and hook sizes you want, but that just gives you sort of a rough estimate. Finally, we have this help button that takes you to the help page with a lot of various help suggestions if you need help. Let's click on Workspace Setup and I'll take you through that. This covers how to modify your Excel settings to minimize this huge toolbar that appears at the top. It takes up about 25% of your screen. Honestly, I like the old Excel where the toolbar was maybe half of that size, but it's fine. You don't need anything in this toolbar for these charts, so you can go ahead and minimize it while you're using these charts. If you ever need it again, pretty easy to bring back. You can just click on the home link at the top. It'll pop down, and then over here in the same corner, there'll be a little push pin, and you can click on that. So you can turn it on and off, or you can hide it and then reappear, whenever you need it. If we go down here, there's also the formula bar that appears underneath the toolbar. There's no formulas to see. You don't really need that. So that will free up space if we uncheck every single one of these boxes. The headings are the letters at the top of the page. The grid lines are the grid lines you see in your Excel spreadsheet, which you don't really need to see those because the charts already have the grid lines for you. So if you turn all these off, it makes your screen a bit cleaner. And finally, as you go through the chart, the bigger ones are sometimes hard to see the full picture. So you may want to zoom out on occasion to see the full chart, or if you want to see a little closer, zoom in. This is in the lower right section of your screen. If you click the plus sign, it zooms in. If you click the minus sign, it zooms out. I believe these zoom in and out in increments of 10. So if you want to do something in smaller increments, just click on this little lever and slide it to the left or right. Okay, so here's the main page on how to use the chart. Hopefully they're pretty explanatory, but this does explain a little bit more. So these are the basic rules on how overlay mosaic crochet works, which you probably know. And we can talk more about that when I get to the chart. Down here, the basic instructions. When you get to the chart, you'll see that as you click in the squares, the A rows are a light blue and they'll toggle to darker blue. And then if you click back on that darker blue, it'll toggle back to light blue. And the B rows, they start out white, and as you click on them, they'll turn gray. And then again, if you click again, it'll turn white. So they basically toggle back and forth between the two colors. The buttons on each chart, these explain what they do. Hopefully the buttons make sense just by reading them. The clear button is kind of cool because you can clear the whole entire chart and get it back to the default state. However, just keep in mind you can't unclear it, so be sure that's what you want to do. You can save your chart to a PDF before you clear it, so just keep that in mind. So for the chart info, when you click on the chart info button, it takes you to this page, and it basically shows you what each template size will become if you're using a weight number 4 yarn, which is a medium weight, and a 5.5 millimeter hook. Again, you can use any size hook, any size yarn, but this gives you sort of a rough estimate as far as what these will translate to with that type of yarn. Each of these are clickable. It will take you to these particular charts. This one is 51 stitches wide by 45 rows high. It creates a square that's approximately 13.5 inches wide times 13 inches tall. These measurements include the beginning and ending single crochets, so technically they're a little bit narrower. If you're going to use the chart for a repeat, just keep that in mind. So as we click on them, we can go from chart to take a look. This is our large square. It's 51 stitches wide, which is down here to show you which stitch number you're in, by 45 rows tall, which the rows are indicated in this side section here. Now you can see we're kind of zoomed out a bit, so the squares are a bit small. If you need to zoom in, this is where that zoom feature at the bottom will help. But as we zoom in, we may lose sight of our buttons. So just keep that in mind. You can zoom in to do some fine detail or zoom out as you need. So I'm just going to start drawing. There's a few ways you can do that. You just select a square, it changes color. To change it back, you want to select something else first and then click the square again. And you can see how they change color back to their original state. The way I've designed these charts is that this is a default for no design. So basically all your B rows would be front loop double crochets and all your A rows would be covered by those front loop double crochets. So obviously we're not going to do a square like that because we want a design. So as we click on the squares, you notice that they change. When you're going side to side, you can highlight and drag your mouse and let go, and it will click all of them for you. Unfortunately, it doesn't do that going up and down, but you know, side to side, it's pretty quick to just kind of drag your mouse over and just kind of highlight everything. Another quick way to do this is start your mouse in the square that you want, and then just use your arrow keys. I can move down really fast using my arrow keys. This is just me moving down fast. This is not fast motion. I'm just using my arrow keys to move around. So that's kind of a nice little... So yeah, I was just moving my arrow keys around just to kind of move around fast. If you don't want to click your mouse button over and over. Or again, you can just, you know, it's up to you how you want to do it. So with Mosaic, the way you want to think of this chart is that these blue squares are the design. The gray squares are the B row stitches that are going to be covered by a front loop double crochet from the A row. So the gray squares are really part of the design, but you're not going to see them once the stitch covers them up. So if you want the B row stitch to be seen, don't click it. And of course, if you want the B color to be the dominant color, hiding the A row, leave it white, leave these light blue, and then this will be the B color. So let me show you the X's. So once we get our design finished, and I'll just show you an example. We can click this Add X's button, and you'll see that it adds all your X's for you. And what the X's mean is these are where you want to do your front loop double crochets. And so you can see how these white rows the B rows have an X where there's a white square, there's a light blue square below it, and then it's going to stitch into this row right here. So these are going to hide the A rows. So these light blue squares are the A row stitches that will be covered by the B rows, whereas these darker blue squares represent the main design. So these A rows, wherever there's a front loop double crochet, it's going to cover the stitch from the B row. So those stitches are gray. So keep that in mind when you're designing, because you're clicking every single square. This isn't going to change the colors for you. This is up to you as a designer, where you want your designs. So let's remove the X's, which is a nice little feature, because when I design, I don't want to see all these X's. They're sort of visually messy and they detract from me trying to design. So I remove them. Magic. And so when you're designing, and let's say we stopped there, we forgot to do another blue square here. The problem is that when you go to do this front loop double crochet, there's not going to be anything to stitch into it. So in this case, if you miss any, here's what happens. We add the X's. You're going to get a little warning, and it's going to tell you, hey, there's something that needs to be fixed. You missed a stitch. So what you're going to do is you're going to close this out, and you're going to look for any stitch that has a question mark. Well, there's your question mark right there. And so according to the rules, if this is a hidden stitch that's supposed to be covered by a front loop double crochet, that tells me I have to have a dark blue below it. And that should fix it. We can just double check that by hitting add X's again. And we can see that there's no question marks. I didn't get a little warning box, and everything's good to go. So I hope that's kind of a fun little feature for you. I know that can be a confusing part of creating mosaic crochet, but just keep in mind for these particular charts, just think of the dark blue as your main design. The gray is part of the main design, but of course the gray is going to be the stitches that get covered by your front loop from your A rows. And obviously you can use any color yarn. You don't have to use blue. The A rows could be white yarn and your background could be black yarn, but just for the chart, just keep that in mind. And let's say we're done with this chart. I mean, this isn't really anything spectacular, but let's say we're done with the chart. You got your design how you wanted it. So we can go ahead and save this as a PDF, and this will automatically save a PDF with whatever chart you're using. So it'll stay large square, and then it'll have the date and the exact time you saved it. That will create separate files every time you save the PDF so that you're not overwriting your previous PDFs that you've already created. So if we hit save as PDF, it automatically saves a PDF for you. You can see my name right here. It's Mosaic Chart, large square. Here's the date, 2021. It's April 4th. Here's the time. And this is going to be stored in the same exact location as your template is stored in. So just keep in mind where you're storing your template. These PDFs will automatically save in that same exact location. And if you don't like the name, you can always rename them later. And then the other part of it, if you want to print this, which I'm not going to do here because obviously you won't see it print, but if you hit print, this is going to print that same picture that we just saw in the PDF. So the only caveat is that you want to make sure your Excel printer settings are set up to point to the printer that you want to use, that your printer's turned on, and that you have paper. This isn't going to take you to the print setup page. This is just going to print straight to whatever you have that's already set up. As we scroll down, every chart is going to have a help button and a home button. So the help button takes you to that help page we talked about earlier, and the home button is going to take you to the home page that we started out at. Anyway, once you're done and you've saved your PDF, you like your design, you're finished with your design, and you're ready to start your next design, it's super easy. We just hit the clear form and we start fresh. So here we have a chart that's 25 stitches by 21 rows. It's a small square. This is about a 6" by 6" square. It's great for little like granny square type projects, and it works exactly the same. You have your design, you create your design however you want. So we'll just go through. I'm using the arrow keys now. I can kind of go up around. Okay, so I'm going to hit add X's, and this will warn me if there's any issues. And I got a warning. The squares with question marks need to be fixed. Gray squares need to have dark blue squares above and below them. See help section for more information. I can close that, and I'm going to look for my question marks. I see a couple right here. This gray square is telling me it needs either dark blue above and below, or if I didn't mean for that to be gray, maybe I meant for that to be a bee color. I can click it again to make it white. And this one I meant to be a front loop double crochet. So I'm going to click that. And now if I rerun my add X's, I can see that they fix each other. As we add a little more to the design, let's say I meant to put a couple spots here. I can just keep clicking the add X's button. That will revise my design as I go. Now once I'm ready, save as PDF, print it out, or if you don't like what you did and you just want to clear everything, we can hit clear form. We have a large square that is 51 stitches wide by 45 stitches high. Again, the 51 stitches does include the beginning and ending single crochets. We have a 25 stitch by 21 row square. It's a small square, about 6.5 by 6 inches. We have a horizontal banner size, which is 51 stitches wide by 21 rows high. We have a vertical column, which is 45 rows high by 25 stitches wide. We have a large vertical rectangle. We have a horizontal rectangle, which is where my chart creator graphic came from. I'm not hitting clear form because that is something you can do when you get the chart. And then we have a small vertical rectangle for motifs for a repeat that you want in a row. Or this could be an up and down repeat. And then the small horizontal rectangle is also another good little repeat size. And then the help section has potential issues and potential solutions. And so you can just scroll through here if you're having any issues. These are the most common things you might run across. And then I also have an online FAQ/help page. The FAQs also cover some, frequently asked questions. And the help page has this information, but I'll also be updating the help page as I get questions. Just a quick update about my Mosaic Chart Creator template. Thanks to a lot of your valuable feedback during the testing phase, I went ahead and changed the colors in the A rows from that light blue that we saw before into this gray. And then as we click through, you can now see the B rows are now a lighter blue. It helps to see the design a little better as you're going. That was based on all of your feedback. You said it made it easier to see if all of the design color was one color. So now instead of this being a light blue and these being gray, these are now a light blue and the background is gray. So thank you for your feedback, and I hope this is an improvement.